Well, hi there, this is Kermit the Frog.
I'm Captain Kirk.
Fascinating.
I'm a doctor, not a mechanic.
Thank you, love you. Mwah.
Most illogical.
Aye, sir.
Well, that was different. Yep, lousy, but different.
Places, please, and here we go.
Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, bears, Kazon, and things, to episode 17 of the MuppeTrek podcast. I'm Steve.
And I'm Jarman, and we are here to compare, contrast, and confer about our two favorite franchises. And what are those, Steve?
The Muppets and Star Trek. We have been doing one-to-one reviews of The Muppet Show and Star Trek, the original series.
And tonight we're covering The Muppet Show with special guest star Valerie Harper and Star Trek original series episode The Squire of Gothos, or Gothos, one or the other.
But before we get to that, Jarman, do we have any feedback?
We do. On Twitter, we had the lovely Michael McGovern, a long old friend of mine, listened to the Play on Nerds podcast, and now he's listening to the MuppeTrek podcast, and he says on Twitter...
We tricked him again.
We tricked him to listening still. He says, I'm loving this new series, and I'm so glad you are doing it. I've been a huge Star Trek fan most of my life, and I've always loved revisiting the Muppet Show. Keep up the great work. And so thank you so much, Michael. That's very nice.
Love it. Well, thank you for continuing to listen and believe in us.
Yeah, we didn't know if we had our old fans all coming back for the MuppeTrek, so we're glad to hear from you.
Yeah.
And so, Steve, tell us about this guest star, Valerie Harper, that we have this week.
Oh, man, Valerie Harper. Well, she's a Golden Globe and 3-time Emmy winner with a Tony nomination under her belt. And while she does have a few films to her credit that you might know her from, most of us know her from television. She played Rhoda on 92 episodes of The Mary Tyler Moore Show, 92. Which then spun off into a 109-episode show of her own called Rhoda.
It went longer than Mary Tyler Moore?
Longer than Mary Tyler Moore.
That's crazy.
Just nuts. But what does our generation know her from? Besides a few short or single episode runs on kind of bigger shows like Desperate Housewives or Two Broke Girls and doing a voice on The Simpsons, the answer is probably not much for our generation, besides Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Yeah, it's crazy because she's beautiful and talented and funny, and so I'm surprised she didn't do more after Rhoda.
Man, I just hope she got her money and got out.
Yeah, I got some good residual checks there, retirement.
Yeah, syndication on Mary Tyler Moore and Rhoda, and just ride that for the rest of her days.
Nick at Night, man.
Nick at Night. She gets a 12-cent check every time it shows.
She better. I hope she does.
This week on The Muppet Show, the show opens backstage with Kermit telling George the janitor that the backstage is just a mess. Valerie Harper enters backstage. This is actually the first time a star did this.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And immediately plugs her show, Rhoda. It was real quick. And then says she's a Muppet freak and that she wants to do a big opening number. It turns out that she sabotaged the opening bird act by taping the bird seed to someone who is presumably being pecked to death by birds while this is happening.
Yes. Very terrible.
Valerie then gets a backstage performance of Broadway Baby, in which she does several impressions or caricatures, including Marilyn Monroe.
It was a great opening number.
Oh, yeah. After that, we have Statler and Waldorf, who this week are kind of important for once. The B-plot centers around them trying to approach Valerie Harper for a date, specifically Statler.
Mm-hmm.
Following this is a trip to the kitchen with the Swedish chef. He's decorating a cake, and the cake screams back at him in Japanese. And after arguing, he smashes it with a bat. Next, we take a trip backstage where Statler is demanding to see Valerie Harper, and he's bringing her to the special plant that grows uncontrollably. Statler takes a seat, refusing to leave the backstage. Afterwards, we get a Muppet news flash. A man has turned into a rug. Valerie Harper plays his wife, who plans to divorce him because he doesn't match the drapes.
Mm-hmm. We
then get Rolf original poem, The Butterfly. We got another one of these earlier in the season.
Right.
And it's just a fun, cute little moment that ends with a butterfly catching him in a giant net. Statler, still backstage, argues with George, who ends up watering the plant, which causes it to grow uncontrollably and take over the backstage. After this is at the dance, we get a weird joke with Dr. Teeth dancing with Mildred, who tells him that he is a terrible dancer. He responds by making a joke about physically hurting her.
God.
I love There's so many jokes in this that I'm watching. I'm like, man, this would not fly.
Not anymore.
Next is Ralph and Sam singing the song Tit Willow, where Sam unenthusiastically sings along, which is a really funny number that ends with just Sam singing the word Tit Willow over and over and over again. After that, we have another musical number with Floyd Pepper, who performs the song Searching as kind of a Sherlock Holmes kind of character looking for a lost little girl who's always just out of their line of sight. We get a check-in with Waldorf Statler. God damn it, I always get confused. Waldorf, who is jealous and bored, making faces and trying to tickle himself to stay entertained, and it looks inappropriate. Backstage, Kermit goes on to tell Statler to get the plant under control as it has taken over the entire backstage. George gets the plant wet again, causing it to explode with growth yet again. Upstairs, Hilda and Valerie are in the dressing room, who introduces this. It's a terrible joke about a rabbit. I'm not even going to say it.
Yeah, I was really confused by that.
I wrote it out. I'm not even going to read it. Backstage, what's more, the plant has begun to completely choke the backstage as Kermit calls for the next act. Sam the Eagle does his weekly introduction of Wayne and Wanda, who sing On a Clear Day You Can See Forever. They begin to sing when a heavy fog rolls in and chokes them out. It's a cute Wayne and Wanda. After this, we get a brief Muppet News flash where the paper doesn't say anything. Back in Valerie's dressing room, she is excited to go for her big closing number. Kermit tells her that she'll be performing with the Clodhoppers. This then brings us to the closing number of Nobody Does It Like Me. A really cool stage number done with one of Jim's favorite tricks, which requires ultra black backgrounds and guys in full velvet suits making puppets dance.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Without you knowing they're there. It's a really cool effect. We come to the close of the show. Statler finally gets to introduce himself to Valerie, who just wants the plant because she's a vegetarian and wants to eat it. And that is this week's episode of The Muppet Show.
Mm-hmm.
So some cool music this week. We got Broadway Baby. It's from Sondheim's musical Follies. Fun Sondheim fact, he only writes music and lyrics while intoxicated. Tit Willow from Gilbert and Sullivan's opera The Mikado. It opened in 1885 in London, and within 9 months, more than 150 companies across Europe and North America were performing the show.
Jeez.
Searchin', made famous by the Coasters, who were an early kind of R&B pre-doo-wop group, and this is the same group that performed Yakety Yak.
Don't talk back.
Yeah. On a Clear Day You Can See Forever. It's from a musical of the same name. Lyrics were provided by a guy named Alan J. Lerner of Lerner and Lowe. And they, of course, brought the world musicals like My Fair Lady and Camelot and Brigadoon. And Nobody Does It Like Me from the musical Seesaw, which we actually mentioned on an earlier episode, based off a Gibson play, Two for the Seesaw. And it's the heartwarming tale of a lawyer who goes to New York City to have an affair and cheat on his wife.
Lovely. Also wouldn't fly.
No. So, Jarvin, what did you think of this episode of The Muppet Show with Valerie Harper?
This is one of my top for the first season.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
I think she's just really entertaining. I really enjoy that it changed things up a bit. Having her come out and from backstage in the first part of the episode. I like that Statler and Waldorf were a little more involved, and it had a solid B plot that went throughout the whole episode and kept you interested with the plant growing and taking over the entire set. That probably cost a lot of money to do all that. So that was pretty cool. So more along this theory of mine that Statler and Waldorf are two gay men. First of them dancing together in a couple episodes now, but
one
also
of them says they dated a man.
Yeah, Waldorf says he dated Lionel Barrymore.
Yeah. And
so I think it's canon at this point that he's at least bisexual.
At least. But who's going to... Don't judge Statler and Waldorf.
I'm not judging. That's cool if they are. It's just, that's my little theory, my little headcanon that they're...
I'm just saying they're puppets. They don't have a bottom half.
That we know of.
I'm just saying there's no genitalia involved. So.
And the Sam the Eagle song, Tick Willow, Tick Willow, Tick Willow. It was actually just really weird and funny. I don't know. I really enjoyed that. Yeah. So the only thing that fell flat was the weird bunny puppet joke thing.
Oh my God. That was so bad. I'm not even going to talk. It's so bad.
I didn't catch it. I was like, what just happened? I'm confused. And it wasn't related to the rest of the episode. It was very confusing and it was gone. So that didn't really take away too much from me. So just, yeah, really entertaining episode. Valerie Harper, very funny, very good singer, dancer. She did everything. So she's kind of one of those great people to host the show because she can do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really solid.
I think her opening number and her starting backstage was just killer. And I feel like in general, this episode is one of the few from season 1 that you could tell me was from season 2 or season 3. And I'd go, oh yeah. Because the backstage plot was present and there. It was much bigger. There was much more of the star backstage.
Right. We got enough of the star this time.
The musical numbers were quick. Mind you, we were missing kind of some staples. We didn't get a Veterinarian's Hospital. We didn't get a Muppet Labs. But I feel like they filled the time really well.
Yeah, because we got a Swedish chef. We don't always get that. So the cake and smusher. So it was good.
Well, good. I'm glad this is probably, you said, in your top 5.
Yeah, I'd say top 5 for the first season for sure.
I think I would agree with that for me too.
Wow, there you go.
Yeah.
We've had a couple episodes so far where you've hated them and I've been like, it was all right.
So, German, let's talk about this week's The Original Series episode. What did we watch?
The Squire of Gothos, or Gothos. This has been, since I was much younger, one of my favorite episodes. I don't know why, just because I think I really enjoy this actor who plays the Squire of Gothos throughout. William Campbell is his name. He plays a Klingon later on in the series. We'll talk about that. And then that same Klingon character is a Next Generation later on, or it might be Deep Space Nine actually. And he, same actor comes back, is much older. He comes back and plays the same character. So we'll be talking about William Campbell for a while. Cool. Yeah, it's pretty neat. So in this episode, we have the Enterprise passing through a star desert, and they make jokes in the beginning about how Kirk and McCoy miss the deserts of Earth because they're beautiful, and Spock thinks that's illogical. But they suddenly encounter a rogue planet that didn't appear on their sensors just moments ago in this desert area where there shouldn't be anything. So as Sulu enters a course to investigate the planet, he disappears from the bridge, and then Kirk vanishes a second later. So what's going on? So Spock guesses that they must have been taken to the planet, even though it has a lethal atmosphere, kind of like Venus or something. They then receive a written message from the planet on their view screen, and it says, "Greetings and felicitations, hip hip hurrah, and tally ho."
Tally ho.
Strange things. So Spock orders McCoy and 2 others to go on a landing party to see what is going on down at the planet. And McCoy gets down there with the others and finds a lush, breathable environment when they beam down. And the encounter looks like a medieval castle, which is all very strange. Inside the castle, they find Kirk and Sulu, who are frozen like 2 wax figurines. And they also find a being that calls himself Trelane, who comes across as like an old Victorian British fop. That's kind of the character he's playing. And he invites them all to be guests on his planet, Gothos. McCoy secretly scans him with the tricorder, and it's like he doesn't even exist, like he's not even there. And apparently Trelane has been collecting memorabilia or creating memorabilia of Earth from 400 years ago, from that era of like Napoleon and that kind of thing, because he's been looking at Earth from far away. And so from this far away, it's still 400 years ago because of the way, light works and stuff like that. So Spock manages to find life signs on the planet, and he decides to beam every life sign he finds back up to the Enterprise just so he can be sure that he can save Kirk and the crew. And he gets them all back in the Enterprise, but Trelane appears in the Enterprise as well, and he zaps them all back down to his castle on Gothos, along with a couple of the female crewmen as well. Eventually, Kirk gets tired of Trelane playing games with them, especially after Trelane dresses a female crew member in a Victorian gown and starts dancing with her and forcing Uhura to play the harpsichord. It's all very strange. Kirk and Spock notice that Trelane never strays very far from this giant mirror in the castle, and they suspect that that's where he draws his power from. So to test this, Kirk tricks Trelane into an old-style pistol duel and then shoots the mirror, which reveals all sorts of weird machinery and equipment, and it's now destroyed. This very much upsets Trelane, but the crew is then now able to beam back to the Enterprise. They're not trapped there anymore. But as they try to warp away from the planet, the whole planet of Gothos starts moving and continuously blocking their path, so it's like a moving planet. Kirk decides to beam back down to the planet and face Trelane once and for all. And Kirk finds himself in a courtroom when he beams down, and Trelane is the judge. And Trelane says he's guilty of treason and conspiracy and fomenting insurrection and is sentenced to a hanging. And Kirk says, "That's lame. You could totally kill me in a more fun way," which is strange.
It was very convincing.
Oh, yeah. So they agree that Trelane will instead hunt him like the greatest game that there is, a human. And in exchange, Trelane will let the Enterprise go. Eventually, Trelane hunts down Kirk and traps him, and reveals that he has no intention of letting the Enterprise go. He's going to play with all of them and hunt them all down one by one. But just then, 2 energy beings arrive and appear to be Trelane's parents, and they scold him for his bad behavior.
They send him to his room.
Basically. He's zapped away. And it's funny because his accent disappears, and he suddenly is talking like a little boy. He's like, but I was going to win. I was going to win soon. So the energy beings apologize to Kirk for their child, and then Kirk returns to the Enterprise, and that's pretty much the end of the episode. So a little bit of trivia here. If anyone watches Next Generation, they'll see a lot of similarities here for Trelane and Q and the way that he behaves. And there was a book written that was, canon within the book series that Trelane was actually a child version of Q, which it kind of makes sense for the canon. And originally Trelane was going to be written for Roddy McDowall, the actor who you might know from Planet of the Apes and other movies as well. But they decided not to use him because they feared his mannerisms of the character combined with McDowell's look would make the character appear gay. So I
could get that. So
Campbell was chosen instead because his huskier look and build would offset the foppish mannerisms of the character, is what they said.
Okay.
And so William Campbell auditioned, and as soon as the auditioning was done, they said, go straight to wardrobe. He's perfect for the part. So he got it immediately.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so that's basically the trivia I have for that. So what did you think of this episode, Steve?
So overall, good episode. Some of the things I really liked, and mind you, at first I liked it and then it kind of changed. At first, after Picard, not Picard, goddamn it, Kirk and Sulu disappear, I was like, oh, we get another episode where Spock's in charge. But that only lasted like 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe 5 minutes. So that was kind of disappointing. But I was excited to see Spock in charge again. Trelane was a great character. Just great.
Oh, yeah.
And I think this continues my rising theory about me in Star Trek is that for me, it is all about that week's villain.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's making or breaking these episodes for me. Because I was looking back at my favorites and there are all these like crazy villains. Trelane, Mudd, Finnegan, Kang, I think it was his name from the Shakespeare episode.
Oh, yeah. The acting guy. Yeah.
Yeah, the acting guy. That might not be his name. But yeah, so I'm finding more and more that is what's making these make good or bad episodes for me.
That's hence why Khan will be a big episode coming up soon.
Oh yeah. Things I maybe didn't like as much. They should have used the green light throughout. He froze people multiple times throughout the episode, but it was only at the beginning with Kirk and Sulu that green light was on them, and that would have just been an easy construct to use for the rest of the episode. But then they just ditched it, and I was like, oh, all right.
Oh, I didn't even notice the green light to begin with.
Yeah, Kirk and Sulu, when they first find them, they're bathed in this light. But then there are other times where he freezes people where it doesn't happen, and I was like, well, that was a missed opportunity.
That's true. You could have made the power recognizable.
I wish they had any way to check in with the Enterprise. But they literally took every character, like other than Scotty maybe, and put him on this planet. So there was no one for the plot to check back in with.
That's true. There's no B plot, basically.
The B plot disappeared. It merged with the A plot. And the hunt at the end didn't feel satisfying.
It felt like they were kind of wasting time. Like they were kind of trying to run out the clock.
It felt like a fill. Yeah.
Filler.
And something that I'm finding as a general theme that I'm not caring for in Star Trek episodes is when the episode ends by some crazy third party showing up and saying like, it was all a trick, humans. And they say, but who are you? And they laugh and say, you wouldn't understand. And they drift off into space. And I feel like there's at least 5 episodes that match that bill. And this is another one of them.
That's true. Like the last episode, Shore Leave, that same thing happens. It's like,
right. Oh, we didn't murder anyone. You wouldn't understand.
You're primitive humans.
Be on your way, humans. Like, I feel like it's, the one with Tranya, the kid. Yeah. That was another one. It was like,
it was all a trick.
It was a trick. Come, drink Tranya with me. Tranya. Oh, poor little Howard kid.
Clint Howard, great guy.
So, what really brought it through was Trelane and that actor and that character. Some of the other parts of the episode didn't thrill me, but because of this is sort of towards the top of the heap.
Nice, and brought it up that much.
Because I think Trelane is what did it.
Perfectly cast, and we'll be seeing more of him as a Klingon later on, which is fun.
Good. Well, I've got some Trek connections for this week.
I'm excited.
Okay, Valerie Harper was married 2 times in her life. First time was to an actor named Richard Shaw, who had a daughter from a previous marriage.
Gotcha.
Wendy Shaw. She is an actress with more than 60 credits to her name, including a season 3 episode of Star Trek Voyager called Real Life.
Oh.
Wendy Shaw, Valerie Harper's, for at least some time, stepdaughter.
Fascinating.
Richard Shaw was also in a TV series called FBI in an episode called Antenna of Death in 1970, which also featured that week William Shatner.
Oh, what are the chances?
There you go. And Valerie Harper got her biggest break on the Mary Tyler Moore Show, where she co-starred with Ed Asner. His daughter, Kate Asner, is an actress and was featured in a Deep Space Nine 7th season episode called Extreme Measures.
Wow, that's a crazy reaching connection.
Oh, man, just down that rabbit hole, buddy.
That's insane.
All right, let's talk more insanity, similarities.
Yeah, so I'll throw out some 2 obvious ones first together. Right. My first one, both have ballroom dancing in their episodes.
You got it.
And also piano/harpsichord playing.
God damn it. I said performers pretending to play keyboards.
Yeah, exactly. Did you have another one?
Yeah, both involve someone trying to woo an unrequited love. The Squire with the Yeoman and Statler with Valerie Harper.
That's true.
And I've got one more.
I got one more too. Both have a scene where a character is overwhelmed by fog. Captain Kirk when Trelane sends him out to the planet unprotected, and then Wayne and Wanda during their song.
You're absolutely right. Both feature people searching. Floyd Pepper and the Whatnots looking for that little girl, and the crew searching for Kirk and Sulu.
It's like they're the same episode.
Oh my God. How do people not see this yet?
It's just too up. It's like it's like plagiarism, basically.
It is. But what's that noise?
Transporter malfunction.
The transporter's malfunctioning.
Shit.
So this is the part of the episode where we transport one character from one episode to the other episode and vice versa. So what do you got for us this week, Steve?
So this week I got from the Muppet Show, Sam the Eagle coming over to replace the Squire of Gothos.
Oh gosh.
But then instead he really plays up the like conquest and glory side.
He would. He's very
Manifest destiny is the greatest achievement that we could find. Just like, do you not agree? Is it not your people's way?
That would actually work really well.
Yeah.
I actually put that Valerie Harper could replace Squire of Gothos because she's a great song and dance performer and could play that over-the-top role really well. I think she'd be really entertaining as a Squire of Gothos.
So I said the Squire of Gothos come over and take the place of Statler, going after Valerie Harper backstage, causing all sorts of chaos and shenanigans with his powers.
That would be better than the plant, I guess.
My good lady, you should come with me.
I put the Squire of Gothos to replace Kermit. He could be a great host of the Muppet Show, I think.
He would make a good MC. I could agree with that.
He would. He'd corral that whole place, man. He could really drive that home. So I guess that really brings us to the end already, to episode 17 of the MuppeTrek podcast.
Join us next time for episode 18 of The Muppet Show with special guest Mummenschanz.
Oh boy. And original series episode Arena.
So from the lovers, the dreamers, and us,
live long and prosper, everyone. Thanks for listening to the MuppeTrek podcast. Be sure to follow us on social media on Facebook and Twitter.
Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform.
This podcast has been brought to you by A Play on Nerds.